happy. I sing because I'm free, for his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
My name is Donna Marie Todd, and I'm a storyteller.
Hi, I'm Annette Frisbee at Lifeway Ridgecrest Conference Center, and I have known Donna Marie Todd for 3 years and have worked with her here at the Conference Center level. The first time I saw her perform was actually on this stage here in Spillman, and there was an instant connection between her and the audience.
My grandmother made history books. Now, if you were to see one, you would call it a quilt. But my grandmother's quilts told the history of our family as we grew up. Looking at one of my grandmother's quilts was like looking at an old friend. There was my mom's lilac Easter dress. She had been so beautiful that year. There was my grandmother's flowered house dress. There was the red flannel of Daddy's camp shirt. Could just smell the wood smoke just looking at it.
What I've enjoyed about working with Donna Marie Todd for the past 3 years is definitely her dedication to her audience and the way she connects to them in a personal, passionate way.
Now, I grew up in a very small town in the hills of West Virginia. My town was so small that my neighbors knew my business before I did. The only thing we did not go to were each other's revivals, because we all had very different ideas about who was going to heaven and why. And there was this one woman who took advantage of that kind of intimacy. Her name was Mrs. Smith. And every night at 6 o'clock, the phone would ring, and it was Mrs. Smith with a problem that could not wait until 7:15. Mrs. Smith was the prototype for today's telemarketer. No, I'm sorry. My mommy says to tell you my daddy's not at home.
Hi, I'm Tracy Taylor Bailey, and I'm the Director for Conference Services here at the Monterey Conference Center. And Donna Marie Todd has been coming to do entertainment and teaching programs and conferences and anything else that we can talk her into doing for us for a number of years. She and I have actually forgotten how many years it's been. But we're always delighted to have her come and either do an entertainment, share a storytelling concert with us, or to provide a session of teaching.
And when we had to travel to get to the family reunion, that formed my favorite childhood memory. Because you see, we were Welsh Methodists. We were singers, kind of like the Von Trapps.
I sing because I'm happy.
We would sing up the mountain and down the mountain, all the way to Uncle John's farm. Now, we all had our favorite songs, okay? And my daddy's favorite song was the Riddle Song. It's a famous mountain song that goes something like this. I gave my love a cherry that had no stone. I gave my love a chicken without a bone. I gave my love a baby, what's no crying. And I told my love a story that had no end. Now, I said we all had our favorite song, and just looking at you guys, I have a feeling that some of you know my mother's favorite song. And if you do, please sing it with me. It would make her so happy. And if you know the harmony, sing that too. Ready? Tell me why the stars do shine. Tell me why the ivy twines. Tell me why the ocean's blue. just why I love you.
She's a gifted teacher as well as a wonderful entertainer, and it's always a pleasure to have her come and be with us.
We grab onto the old screen door that led into the kitchen of the farmhouse, and before we could even get inside, my Aunt Jane's voice would say, "Don't you slam that door, young lady." I don't know about other parts of the country, but in West Virginia, family reunions are just very thinly veiled forums for child-rearing critique. And my mother and her sisters sparred over their children's behavior like Olympic fencers at a sword meet. Aunt Jane would draw her weapon first. "Pearl, does that girl slam the door when she's at your house or just when she's at mine?" Never one to turn down a fight. My mother would push my sister and myself to safety behind the giant potluck table, and then she would unsheath her weapon. "Now, Jane, I don't think she was going to slam the door, were you, dear? And was that Dale outside? I barely recognized him. He'd gained so much weight." Whoosh. Thank you. Then you got a hug. And it was a big, warm hug that made you feel loved all the way down to your bones. And then you were free to go. And so we'd leap off the front porch of the farmhouse and run down the front lawn, down to the Sulphur Creek at the bottom. And Uncle John would stand up on the porch and he'd holler, "Don't you kids play in that Sulphur Creek, stain your clothes." We went to the Sulphur Creek anyway. And our outdoor expeditions at the family reunion were always led by Cousin Paul. So we'd all run up to the house, and Paul would pump the big well pump, and this icy cold water would come splashing out, and we'd rinse our faces and rinse off all that sulfur water and all that crawdaddy goo. And then Grandma'd say, "It's time for the blessing." And we'd all run up on the front porch of the farmhouse and hold hands. Now, it was a particular point of pride with my grandmother that when it came time to say the blessing at her family reunion, she had a professional to do the job. So she would linger over my dad's name a little bit. She'd say, "Reverend Ross, will you bless us, please, Reverend?" And we'd all hold hands. And my daddy'd say the prayer. And he always ended it the same way. "And Lord, we just thank you that we're a family again." Paul would take out his pocket knife. You did not want to know where that had been. It always had stuff clinging to it. He'd sanitize it. And then he'd make one long horizontal cut, clean it, 2 vertical cuts. And then he'd scoop out a piece of chocolate cake as big as a brick for each one of us kids. And we'd take our chocolate cake and our just sweet enough iced tea, and we'd go out to the side porch where the grown-ups couldn't figure out what happened to all the cake. And we'd eat the cake and drink our tea, until we were so hopped up on sugar that we would leap off the porch and run around in the front yard hooting and hollering, chocolate cake smeared across our faces like Indian war paint. And we'd hoot and holler around in the front yard until the fireflies started to come out. Oh, I see one. Oh, there's one. And then Aunt Jane would go in the basement and she'd get the canning jars from the year before and she'd poke holes in the lids and she'd give each one of our kids one. And we would catch fireflies and put them in our jar. Huh? I got one. And when we finally filled our jar with fireflies, Then we very carefully took our firefly lanterns up to the front porch, and we put them down on the edge of the front porch in front of Grandma, like the Magi bringing gifts to the baby Jesus. And when night fell in the West Virginia hills, like a black velvet curtain being pulled across the mountains, the entire front porch was lit up by firefly lanterns, and we were family once again.
I sing